day off, and then they're gonna miss Wednesday because they're taking the SAT. That doesn't make me happy, so.
Were we supposed to show up today?
Yes, you're supposed to show up today. Yeah, yeah. And no, if it's on the syllabus, you have work to do. So. No, you're okay. You're here. You're right where you should be. And I'm going to teach the class, so that won't change. I still have to do my job, so. It just is a little frustrating when the schools don't bother to let me know they're not gonna be in school. Because I have 9 schools. I'm not gonna go out and check their schedules. It's just a lot of extra work. Technically, they should let me, I should get a schedule up front, but most people don't send it to me, so. All right, let's see, we got 5 minutes. So I'm not gonna start for 5 minutes.
When did our final draft due?
On this, no, oh, you mean the final version of the paper is due tomorrow night on the compare and contrast? Yeah. It's due tomorrow night. My Tuesday, Thursday classes, it's due tonight. So, I actually have looked at one section. I haven't looked at drafts because I didn't finish grading. I still have one paper to grade. Do you remember where the copy room is? Did I have to go get copies for me? Okay, don't worry about it. I'll get it later. Let's see. Content, we are in week 7. Yes. Next week we'll be halfway through the semester. Were you unsure if we had class, or?
Oh, no.
She peeked in barely. You can barely see her eyes over no, your stuff is all right here at your chair. It's all right there, okay? That's why I get her, so I can get the papers handed out and get everything scanned and emailed, and I don't think I'm gonna have any schools today, so that'll be fun. We'll see. Good morning. So you guys should show up, nothing else, to get your papers. It's Columbus Day, so most of the area schools are off today. Oh. I didn't print that one. We did do that one. We'll come back to that one later, because we'll come back to that one. I'm missing something, like the assignment. Wait, no, it's in there. Okay. Oh, wow, Lorenzo's there, awesome. That would be Crosbyton over there. I had a fun time on Friday with I had 9 girls from Crosbyton in the class. And I really got to know their names, and as I was grading papers, I knew whose paper I was grading. I'd go, oh, okay, I know what she looks like. It was kind of neat. So they were kind of fun, and Abernathy won't be there, so that's 15 not present, so. All right, let's see, we got 2 minutes. I may go ahead and start. Morning, Lorenzo, how's it going? So, Alejandro, is your arm in a sling? Are you supposed to use it at all? Okay, all right, just checking. It's really hard to text on your phone with your right hand, huh? Right? Yeah, okay. You've got several handouts. We're just starting. That was your phone, right? Yeah. Boom. We're just starting talking about argumentation and summary. The rest of the semester, so that means basically 2 months or 6 weeks, we're going to spend on argumentation and writing summary. The summary is going to have to involve whatever you're writing your argumentation essay about. So, did y'all have to write research papers in high school? One? Your senior year, or?
I don't write like any essays my senior year.
Well, yeah, it's because the teacher's like, I know they don't have to take the test, so we're not going to write essays. Awesome. They do you such a disservice when they do that.
I like coming in to write an essay.
Yeah, that's such a disservice. And, I loved it. When I had student teachers, I would make them assign research, papers to the students, and I made them grade them. so that they would know what they're getting into when you get into English, so, all right? So this is what's coming up. Lorenzo, is that an alarm or the phone? Oh, okay. It's good to know you're waking yourself up for class right now, okay? I'm just making a note here. This is 10:11, and, okay, I can write that down. All right, so I'm gonna talk about the argumentation essay. In week 7, everything's in week 7. I don't have much else done for the rest of the semester, but I got week 7 all suited up for us. Suited up, yeah, it's gonna play a game. Okay, so, the next two major writing assignments, which are a summary and the research argumentation essay, are interrelated, because I figured I've had students do summary in the past, but it was just over any kind of article. I found some articles and let students do them. I thought, how much better to have you write a summary over something that's going to apply to what you're writing your argumentation essay about. Okay, so in week 7, we're going to see the argumentation assignment. Oh, you can't even read that, can we? That's not what I meant to hit. Okay, so students are going to select a topical issue. That means there's an issue out there in the world today that you can write about, that you can argue about, okay, about a topic. The essay will be a minimum of 600 words in length. Students should quote 2 outside sources from legitimate and reputable articles, no websites or blogs. Wikipedia is not a legitimate source. Wikipedia is a source that if you want to send information in, they'll kind of check it over and then they'll put it in. It doesn't mean it's necessarily always the truest thing you've ever read, okay? The only way to make an A on the argumentation essay is by using the SPC databases. On Wednesday, a librarian is going to come in and show us how to use the databases. These sources can be found in those databases, and it's just like writing the compare and contrast. You need to have an introduction. You'll need a thesis that's got kind of at least 2 sections, most likely 3 sections that you're going to argue about. And then you also take a stand, but you don't write in first person. When we write at an academic level, we write in this third person kind of thing, even though I know and you know that it's your opinion on the topic, okay? See how it says no first or second person pronouns. You don't have a copy of this. This is actually just in the folder in week 7 that says argumentation. The last page of the document, but not part of the word count, will be the works cited where the student informs the reader about the sources. And you can use Purdue OWL. I will help you with I'll be glad to help you with it. We'll spend some time one day. I'll show you the easiest way to create a works cited with MLA. But I have a list of prohibited topics. We can't talk about abortion, because that is a hot topic right now, particularly with what the Supreme Court's doing and the federal courts, all the different appellate courts are doing right now. Gun control, there's nothing worse. The only people who want to write about gun control are the people who want to control guns, or the people who are rabidly fanatic that they have to have that gun so they can go hunting, so they can feed their families. I don't want to read either side, so that's it. There's individuals who and it's always the people who think homosexuality is horrible and that they should not be allowed to do anything, and so they don't write very well. And then prayer in schools. I had a semester where I had like 8 people write about how we should have prayer in schools, and they were not good papers, because all they could write about, they wanted to use the Bible, but they didn't use the Bible very well. So, that's my list of topics you can't write about. You can write about almost, and there's always somebody that wants to legalize marijuana for recreational use. There's always, and that's fine. We'll live with it. Those topics where it says list of prohibited topics, those are not allowed because people do not argue well. They are too emotionally involved in them. And when we become too emotionally involved, we don't think logically enough about the topic that we can argue from a point that's valid versus an emotional point. So if you have concern about a topic, all you have to do is message me to get my okay, or I may tell you, I may clarify. I had a student one time who wanted to write about how horses should not be slaughtered for food, and she couldn't do it. She never wrote the paper. She just could not find enough information about that, because she already decided they shouldn't be slaughtered. So, it was really sad. She failed my class that semester, and then she took it the next semester, and or the next year and passed it. She tried it as a junior and couldn't do it, but as her senior year, she could, so she learned how to separate herself a little bit from her topics. So that's the big, long point out there that we're headed towards, is argumentation, okay? So what we'll be doing on Wednesday is Tracy Pineda, she's one of our librarians here at the Reese campus. She actually is an English teacher too. I mean, she doesn't teach English for us, but she knows, you know, grammar, punctuation, mechanics. She's going to come in and show the best way to work with the databases, all right? So that's argumentation. Now, you should have a copy, since it's just Lorenzo and us. We're talking a big 7 people today. You should have one that says argumentation, not persuasion. If you'll find that one, it's the Word document. And then we're going to talk about summary. And I've already got a due date I'm probably going to push back on summary. Just to give you a heads up, because I'm sitting there thinking, I don't have enough people in here today to have you're supposed to submit a copy of an article for the summary assignment. So I know gives me an idea of what your topic's going to be on, I think, Sunday night. Okay, so, let's make this bigger. Okay. And if you stop and think about it, you know how I talked about when you're sitting around with your friends and you're trying to decide what to do, you do compare and contrast, but at the same time, you're also doing argumentation. Because all of a sudden, once you start figuring out what you would like to do and your friend wants to do something else, you're trying to persuade them to do what you want to do, right? So we do it all the time. It's a process of reasoning that asserts the soundness of a debatable position, belief, or a conclusion. It takes a stand supported by evidence. That's the difference. Persuasion has a lot of emotion in it and urges people to share the writer's perspective and insights. Persuasion is a general term that refers to how a writer influences an audience or tries to persuade them to this course of action. And there are 3 types of appeals. Have you heard of Aristotle, the old dead Greek? He's no fun to read, let me tell you. When he wrote something, the entire book is 1 paragraph. So and I've had to read it. Not all of it, but a couple parts of 2 or 3 books of his. But there are appeals, and the appeals are pathos, logos, and ethos. Pathos is based on appeal to emotion, and that's the problem is when we're writing about certain topics, that's all we can appeal to, because we immediately say, no, that's not good because it hurts people. You know, we want to, you know, and that's really what happens particularly with abortion and gun control, I'll be honest. Logos is based on logic, which I prefer logic when people are arguing. I want to hear solid reasons. I don't want you to hear, you know, do you guys get on Facebook anymore? I get on it, but there's so many, you know, we've heard all that stuff about how they've intentionally put stuff in there to incite people to react negatively to it. I avoid that. I just skip past that. I'm not going to respond to something that's trying to get me mad. I don't want to do that. And then ethos is based upon the character reputation of the writer. And that's what they do a lot in political campaigns, you know. Instead of talking about their credentials, what they have that says they should be good at the job, or what their stance is on something, we just attack their character. So there's a lot of that going on. It's called poisoning the well. If I get up as a speaker and I say, you can't trust that man always lies, then I have poisoned the well. So no matter what he says to you, I've now said he's lying. So you can't believe anything they say. That's poisoning the well. It's considered a logical fallacy. So argumentation is the appeal based on reason, logos. In an argument, a writer connects a series of statements so that they lead logically to a conclusion. This differs from persuasion in that it does not try to move an audience to action. Its purpose is to show that certain ideas are valid and others are not. There's a formal structure to argumentation of making points, supplying evidence, establishing a logical chain of reasoning, refuting the opponent's argument, and then accommodating the audience's views. Sounds like a lot of work. That's one reason why we've got so much time to do this paper. In the past, I've tried to squeeze it into 2 weeks, and so we always throw out counter-arguments. But I think we need to learn how to do them. Having coached debate for several years in the past, I thought we need to learn how to counter the other side's arguments. It's a good skill to have. So most effective arguments combine 2 or more of those appeals, even though the primary appeal is to reason. They can still use one of the others. You can appeal to emotion, and sometimes there's good ways to do that where you're not just screaming, that's bad, it's evil, God says you shouldn't do it, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that feels like a logical argument to a lot of individuals by saying God says you shouldn't do it, but it's, you know, we're trying to scare people when we say that. Does that make sense? Be sure that, remember that though appeals to the emotions may reinforce the central point of your argument, they do not take the place of sound logic and compelling evidence. So part of what we're saying there is that that's why your evidence has to come from legitimate sources. You can't quote just any old person on a blog. One year, and I had a full, I used to teach at least 2 sections, just solely SBC kids. And I had, a lot of people were taking human growth and development, and so they were, a lot of girls were, wasn't guys, it was girls. And they wanted to write about how children are not being, you know, parents are not raising their children correctly, that there are problems with parents and how they're raising their kids. And so this one girl said, oh, she had a source, and she showed it to me, and she said, it's really good. This woman has a chance, all these great ideas on how to raise your kids. I said, so what are her credentials? She goes, I don't know. It was a blog about a woman who had 3 kids, and so she was basing everything she knew about children on her experience with her 3 3 kids. That's not a big enough sample, I'm sorry. You know, and just because I'm a mom, but I'm not going to write a blog about how to write kids, how to raise kids, you know, what you do. So that's why you can't use a blog or a website. You have to have a legitimate source where there's actual statistical or quantitative or qualitative evidence to support what you're saying. Quantitative is, I'm going to say it backwards. One of them is where you actually have evidence, you have statistics. The other is where it's just personal experience, and that's not always the best. Though you can use anecdotal stuff. Okay, so choosing the topic. You should have some kind of an emotional attachment or intellectual stake in the topic, but you should also be open-minded and willing to consider the opposite side. And the reason I'm saying that is, you guys know what death penalty, capital punishment is? Lorenzo, you guys know what capital punishment is? The death penalty? That's where you execute prisoners for committing certain crimes. Okay, so, and if you get stuck, it's always a good topic. The United States should keep capital punishment as a punishment for certain crimes, or the United States should not have. It should outlaw capital punishment. You know, you can take either side. But when you go and do research, capital punishment does not deter crimes. It does not keep people from murdering other people. It's, you know, that's always, oh, yeah, they'll be afraid they're not going to kill somebody because, you know, they're going to get killed. They don't think, when people are killing people, they don't think of that. That doesn't cross their mind whatsoever. So, you know, that's one of those topics that you can write on, but you have to be willing. If everything you find has the opposite side, maybe you need to change your stand on the topic or find another topic. But that's one of those that's a little tricky because of that. And I've had students write on that for 25 years. It's that big of an issue. So that's just kind of in the middle there. You must be able to consider your topic from other viewpoints. If you cannot do so, you should choose another topic you can deal with more objectively. And that's why I take out those 5 topics. It's just easier not to have them in there. Developing a thesis. In an argumentative essay, your thesis must take a stand. It must be debatable. The United States should halt all or stop or declare capital punishment or the death penalty illegal because, so you have to take a stand. But I didn't say, I believe that the United States, see, I didn't say that. I said the United States should stop all death penalty, whatever, and then you have to give the reasons. A good argumentative thesis states a proposition that at least some people will object to. So if I say, do you believe in the death penalty? Do you think we should execute people for committing crimes? Okay. You know, so we could argue, or they could argue with you. So see how it has to be something. If everybody, it's like, if you want to argue that smoking should be outlawed, is anybody out there really going to say that smoking is good for people? It's not. There's nothing good about smoking. It harms your lungs. As an ex-smoker, I can say that. I haven't smoked in 30 years. But I had a mother who had emphysema and congestive heart failure, and it killed her. Okay, so I can argue that topic, but for somebody to say that smoking should be outlawed, it's not really an arguable point, because who's going to say it's good for you? Now, there'll be those who say, yeah, but if I smoke marijuana, it makes me feel better. No, you're still smoking, you're still damaging your lungs. Okay. So, you have to analyze your audience, and you guys know a lot about me. You're finding out about me all the time, right? Consider what the beliefs or the opinions of your audience might be. Remember, an audience might be skeptical, but open to your ideas. But you've got to make sure you've got points that I'm willing to listen to. You have to gather and document evidence, and all points in the essay must be supported. So you have to, you can use the Bible as supporting material. Sorry. I ran yesterday afternoon, and it was really windy, and I'm paying the price for it right now, apparently, so sorry. But there are different kinds of evidence. Facts are statements that people generally agree are true and can be verified independently. Like, we can all agree that the United States independence was declared on July 4, 1776, right? We're going to agree on that one. Opinions or judgments or beliefs that are not substantiated by proof. As a result, they don't carry the same weight as a fact might, but if they can be persuasive if you have an expert in a relevant field who gives their opinion on a topic. So if I say I'm a mom of 3 and I want to say that kids are not being raised right, that won't work. But if I talk about I have a doctorate in psychology, adolescent psychology, and I give you my opinion about what's wrong with raising of kids today, I have a little bit more I'm a little bit more valuable source because I have research and knowledge and background that maybe me as the mother doesn't have. And credibility, it's also the believability of the person offering the opinion. I'm going to see if I've got a mint or something here to help with this cough. So credibility is a lot like having an opinion, but your opinion's got to be from somebody who does something. So criteria for evidence, it's got to be relevant. It's got to support what you're talking about. You can have a really great quote, but if it has nothing to do with your topic, it doesn't belong in your paper. Okay. Representative, it should represent the full, so you have to have evidence from both sides because you are going to have to counter an argument, okay? And it should be sufficient. You've got to have enough facts, opinions, and examples to support your claims, and you have to have documentation, which we will talk about more later, okay? And plagiarism. I actually have had a student on their narrative plagiarize a paper online. That's sad. So that's why everything's turned in through Turnitin to prevent that from happening. And Turnitin picked it up as plagiarized. So, and then I went and looked at the source and I was like, oh, this is a shame. This is really not good, okay? If you use somebody else's words, plagiarism is not just words, it's also ideas. If an idea belongs to somebody else, you have to give them credit, all right? And then common knowledge, like I don't have to give credit to know that the First Amendment is, the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms, right? The first is the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, okay? I don't have to give credit, I don't have to cite the Bill of Rights. Or there are pieces of information that you know that you don't necessarily know, that we kind of you don't have to give credit for. And document any use of a direct quotation and any ideas, statistics, charts, diagrams, or pictures that you obtain from your source. Dealing with the opposition. When gathering evidence, don't ignore those viewpoints that are the opposite of yours. You need to give them credit, okay? And when you do refutation or counter-arguments, you really need to deal with the one that's probably the biggest one that you can come up with, okay? And I just thought I'd throw this in here because we talk about deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning proceeds from a general premise or assumption to a specific conclusion. That is what most people speak of when they speak of logic. You start with a general premise and then you get a specific conclusion. Inductive reasoning, this is what Sherlock Holmes did. He moves from evidence to conclusion. He would pull all the pieces of evidence together and then he'd be able to figure out who committed the crime. That's what Holmes did, right? But most of the time when you're doing experiments in high school science classes, you're doing deductive reasoning. You're proving something that's already been proved. That's why I don't understand why they have you do experiments that just repeat what's been repeated forever and ever and ever. Okay. So anyway, that's argumentation. All right. Okay. Let's go now. one of the things, a major assignment, it's worth the 100 points for the summary are the same as the 100 points for the, argumentation essay. So, which shows you that I think that the summary is as important. You're also gonna have a paraphrase section too. And I've combined two things into this particular item, because we need to learn how to do paraphrase also. In college, as you move into higher level classes, like junior and senior level classes, even some sophomore, you will have instructors who will say, I want you to read this article and I want you to write a summary of it. And so that's why we're teaching that. So, because that's probably a skill you're gonna use more than a lot of the things I might teach you. Because, particularly, when you're at SPC, you're not gonna finish at SPC, you're probably gonna go somewhere else. So you go to tech and you're majoring, and you've got a TA teaching your class, and they'll say, and that TA might have their master's, they might be working on their doctorate, but they've gotta have somebody help them. So a lot of times what they do is they create an assignment and you do their research for them, and then they've got all these articles given, it's a cool thing to do. My daughter had to do that when she was working, and she has her first degree in ESS, Exercise and Sports Science. She's certified to teach English and has a master's in special ed. It's like crazy. She went all over the place with her degrees. Okay? So, but by doing a summary, I'm helping you with other classes, whether it's in government, history, whatever you're majoring in. This is a skill you'll be able to use, okay? So you've got a page that talks about summary. And so we're not gonna look at it just yet. I've got a quick PowerPoint I wanna show you, okay? I didn't give you a copy of this because, you don't need the copy. All right? This is writing an effective summary. But you can see it's English 1301 freshman composition. Okay, we'll see if this helps. So, oh my goodness. A summary is a significant reduction of the original source. So, you're basically taking anywhere from 500 words in an article to 3,000 to 10,000 and summarizing them, okay? Kind of scary. So to write an effective summary, you've got to follow these guidelines. You determine the main idea of the piece you have read, okay, or viewed. You have to figure out what's the main point? Why are they writing this? What is it? Then you write one sentence that captures that main idea. Sounds like I'm teaching you to answer a short answer on the STAR test, it feels like here to me. And then as you read or review, note the major areas of evidence that the piece provides. And then write one sentence that communicates the gist of each of those main ideas. It's just a very specific thing. If, you read an article and it's got so many sections in it, well, each section's gonna be a main idea, or a sub-main idea, I guess, is a way to think of it. Okay, so avoid common problems. I like the fact she has a lip ring there. To avoid plagiarizing, do not look at the source while you're composing the summary. Okay, we're getting ready for Halloween with that one. Use what you remember from the reading or viewing. Do not use first or second person. A summary has nothing to do with you. It should not reflect your opinion or anything. You are summarizing somebody else's ideas and words. So you do not put yourself in a summary whatsoever. Write the summary in your own words, and then after you have written the summary, you can revisit the source to confirm that you got it right. I don't know how many people will do that. Most people will they probably won't even read it. They'll just start writing a summary as they go through it. I'm being realistic, okay? He looks a little worried, doesn't he? So do not express an opinion about the source, neither disagree nor agree, nor sing its praises, okay? Use this formula. Specific name of the piece plus strong action verb plus main idea. In a summary, you always give, in the first sentence of a summary, you always give the name of the author and the title of the story, the title of the essay or article. So the 60-minute story, Thrift Shop Masterpiece, explains the controversy surrounding a possible Jackson Pollock painting. That tells you you're going to read a story about somebody finding a Jackson Pollock painting in a thrift store. Probably somebody got a lot of money out of this deal. Okay, so that sounds so much better. All right, so now we're down to show me what you can do. So that's a summary. So now you've got a 3 or 4 page document that is a Word document. Okay, it says good summaries at the top. That's the sample summary. Okay, yeah, there's the good one. Looks like this. A good summary tells the main idea clearly. Oh, I'm gonna have to make that bigger, aren't I? It's hard to read it. You tell the main idea clearly, it's written in your style, it's shorter than the original document, so I'm gonna say, and in fact, your summary assignment is to be no more than a single page long. Yeah, but you're gonna have to do a couple of versions of it, so, plus you've gotta do a paraphrase, so. They are shorter than the original, they explain all of the important notions and arguments, and they condense a lot of information. And actually, I've written a summary of an article and had it published. It was a long time ago, I don't have time to do that anymore. All right, so you find the main idea. In the summary, you want to identify the main idea of the article and put this information in your own words. Plan to read the article several times. In the first reading, you want to, let's scroll here. You want to get the general notion of the essay. Okay? Write that down after you finish reading. That will be the thesis of your summary. Basically, in the article such and such by so-and-so, the author discusses whatever that main idea is. Okay? Include the author's first and last name in the title of the article. Yeah, there we go. To figure out the central idea, you should ask yourself why this essay was written and published. Clues to help determine this are the title, the place it was published, which can help you determine the intended audience. So if I publish something in Time magazine, that's read by a lot more people. But if it's published in Scientific America, or Americana, whatever it is, less people read that magazine than read Time, or U.S. News and World Report, or even People magazine, okay? So that kind of gives you a clue what's going on. The date of publication, the type of essay, the tone of the piece. What are the words? Tone is made up of the word choice that the author has. Did y'all do any work with tone in high school? So that's what the STAR test has done. It's taken some of the fun parts. Tone is, if I use the word, tone comes from the word choice of the author. So if I use the word scent, I'm talking about the smell of something. If I use odor, is that a positive or negative word? The room had an odor. That comes off as negative. But if I talk about the perfume of the air, that's a positive. So the word you choose creates a tone. So if I use the word disgusting, then I'm saying something's bad. But if I say it was polluted, there's a different thing going on, isn't there? Polluted is not as bad sounding as disgusted or disgusting. So that's tone. That's how it's created. Notions which seem to be repeated throughout. Okay, here's an example. In Bypass Cure, James Johnson argues that new research suggests that the best cure for diabetes is the surgical solution of a gastric bypass. No, that's not it. Okay, I'm just telling you. That's a really bad statement. Okay, but there's an example. Identify important arguments. Now you want to do a second reading. I'm already realistic. Most of you will not do a second reading. You might read it once, skim it once, right? I'm just being realistic. But this is to do a really good job. When you get in an upper level course, read it more than once, please. Here's how to do it. Read on a paper copy or use a computer program that allows you to annotate. I suggest when you find an article, you come here. You guys can come in early. You can go sit in the computer lab down there, do some research, print out the article you want to, you got to decide on the topic first. That makes sense, right? Got to decide on the topic, then print out an article, and you look for something that's about maybe about 1,000 words long, so that you've got enough to do a page summary of it, okay? But print out a paper copy or print out a couple, and then you can write on it and highlight and do things like that. It's a lot easier to summarize if you can mess with the article physically. Underline the topic sentence of each paragraph. It should be the first sentence, right? If no one sentence tells the main concept, then write a summary of the main point. Write that sentence in your own words on the side of the paper. When you finish the article, read all the topic sentences you marked or wrote down, and then your own words, rewrite those main ideas. Use complete sentences with good transitions. There's a trick to writing a summary, and you don't have to worry so much about transitions like you did in the narrative, or you have to use in the compare and contrast. And we'll talk about that too. Be sure you don't use the same words, phrases, or sentence structure of the original. If you quote from the summary source, it will show up as plagiarized and turn it in, because the article's there too, okay? You may find you need to leave out some of the unimportant details, and your summary should be as short and concise as possible. So then it goes on to talk about writing your summary. Start with the article's name. Here, look at this one. In Cats Don't Dance, John Wood explains. John Wood in Cats Don't Dance explains. According to John Wood in Cats, these are all ways you can begin your summary. As John Wood vividly elucidates in his ironic stories, Cats Don't Dance, that is interesting. That has some opinion in it, okay? And John Wood claims in his ironic story, Cats Don't Dance, that, okay? Then it says, look for the thesis sentence or write out a thesis sentence that summarizes the main idea. That would occur after that in all of those. Underline a topic sentence. This is just repeating it. So here's an example sentence, first sentence. In Cats Don't Dance, John Wood explains that in spite of the fact that cats are popular pets who seem to like us, felines are not really good at any activities that require cooperation with someone else, whether that is dancing or sharing. I'm just going to tell you I have to disagree, because guess who slept with me, next to me all night long? The 7-week-old kitten. Right next to me. And I had to be so careful, because he's only about this big. He's not really big yet. So it's kind of scary. I guess I am mommy kitty, so. The rest of your summary should tell some of the central concepts that are used. But be sure to restate these ideas in your own words, and it talks about using author tags. I will say you don't quote in a summary. You're summarizing, so don't quote. Don't give statistics. Don't give facts. You're summarizing the main idea, the main points. So don't quote, don't give statistics or data. So here it talks about author tags. In writing your summary, you need to clearly state the name of the author and the name of the article, essay, book, or another source. So, according to Mary Johnson in her essay, Cats Make Good Pets, the feline domestic companion is far superior to the canine one. Every sentence in the summary should refer back to the author in some way, shape, or form. That's how you transition. So here we've got Mary Johnson. Then in my next sentence might say, the author also discusses blah, 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 blah. She goes on to write about this. Johnson will do, every sentence can begin with a reference back to the author, whether it's full name, last name, the correct gender pronoun, or the author. Does that make sense? But never use first name only. First name only is when you call somebody by their first name, it's informal, right? You know, are you going to call me Patty? You're going to call me Mrs. Thompson, or hey you, instructor, whatever. Yeah, I mean, you just don't, this is a formal document, so we never use first name only. It goes on to say, you also need to continue to make it clear to the reader when you are still talking about the ideas in the author's work. To do this, use author tags, which is either the last name of the author or a pronoun. So author tags, verb list. And so you can say the author said, explain, comments, persuades, argues, elucidates, concludes. These are all verbs you can use. So I would use concludes when you're talking about the final point that the author made in the article. Creates the impression. These are all tags you can use. Johnson intimates that. Mary Johnson presents the idea that, see how that, so these are actually great ways to help you put the verb in the sentence. And tips and examples, when you refer to the author after the first time, you always use the last name. I'm saying you can use first and last. But don't use every time you refer to the author, don't use first and last name. That's bad. Johnson comments, according to Wood's perspective, as Jones implies in the story about Toller criticizes, okay. Use different verbs and adverbs. Your choice of author tag verbs and adverbs can contribute to the way you analyze the article. And keep an eye on the time. Oh, sorry. I just had somebody ask me if I could pop into a room over in Building 3. She forgets that. I only teach ITV. I would love to, but I can't pop into 311 right now. So certain words will create a specific tone. See the tables. You don't need to use an author's title, doctor, professor, or Mr. or Mrs., but it does help to add their credentials to show that they are an authoritative source. And global warming isn't real. Stephen Collins, a professor at the University of Michigan, claims that. See how I've now got more words, haven't I, by giving who it is. Now, if Stephen Collins is a professor of English at the University of Michigan, that doesn't mean diddly squat. But if I say Stephen Collins, a professor in the Environmental Studies Department at the University of Michigan, I've now made him an authority, more of an authority on global warming. So those are important things you can add. Now, New York Times critic Johann Bachmann argues that global warming is the next best thing for the Earth. Just because you're a New York Times critic doesn't mean you have any knowledge, specific knowledge in that area. It just means you're critical of somebody's writing, okay? You always need to make it clear when you are discussing the ideas of the author. So, use author tags, use mentions of the article or the text, and do not, cross this one off, delete that, put a big X here, cross this off. Add the page number that the information is found on in parentheses at the end of the sentence. No, that's a no. I don't want any quotes, I don't want any data, okay? So there's a template down here. We'll go over that later. What I really want to do is I want you to look at possible topics to write your essays on, because you need to start thinking about it, even though we're 2 weeks out, or we're 6 weeks out of having to finish this one. I'm just going back into week 7. Actually, just so you can see, I'm in argumentation. There's a summary, paraphrase handout. Everything we're going to get in this class will come out of these 2 areas, these 2 folders. Topic list, okay? You know, I always have a topic list available. And if you don't like these topic lists, if you want to go off of it, you do need to clear that with me, okay? Just to be safe, because I'll be able to tell you if there are actually sources out there on it. And it's only because I've lived longer, that's all, okay? Is global climate change man-made? Global climate change is man-made because of blah, blah, you have to give me reasons. So see, you might have to do research before you can select a topic. Is the death penalty effective? That's different. That's different from we should abolish the death penalty. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's make sure I didn't miss any other. Okay. Is our election process fair? Why do we elect? Why do we have a popular vote, yet we also have the Electoral College? Why do we have 2 things that vote on the president? That doesn't make sense to me. Do colleges put too much stock in standardized test scores? Did any of y'all take the ACT or SAT? How did you do? Oh, well, okay. Well, you know, let's be honest. I mean, it's standardized tests are aimed at a specific portion of the population, white, upper middle class. That's who they're aimed at, the SAT. ACT is a little bit better because you're allowed to, you take more than just English and math. You get history, you get science in there? So you get, if you're better at other things, you do well. I mean, let me tell you, the only thing worse than the SAT is the GRE. It's English and math. And when you haven't, I took the GRE 16 years after I got out of high school. When, you know, the last time I did math was a long time before that, so, okay. Is torture ever acceptable? Sitting in class with an English teacher is torture, I get that. Should men get paternity leave from work? That's a popular topic. It really is. It's a very contemporary one too. Is a lottery a good idea? You know, the Texas Lottery went in to help fund education. I don't know right now that education's ever gotten a cent from the Texas Lottery. I've put my share in. I haven't spent any money lately, but do we have a fair taxation system? When wealthy people can afford good accountants and not have to pay taxes, but all of us middle class and poor people have to, is it a fair system? Our previous president has not filed will not release his tax returns because he's not paid taxes, had to pay taxes. He's not the only one. There's a lot of people out there that haven't paid taxes, that make a lot of money. Oh, I like this one. Do curfews keep teens out of trouble? What do you think, Lorenzo? Yes or no? Yes? Nod your head, yes. Curfews keep teens out of trouble? Curfews don't keep teens out of trouble. You can put a curfew on a teen. Whatever you can do after midnight, you can do before midnight, right? That's how I think about it. It makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. Is cheating out of control? That's a very broad topic. But, yeah, it is. I think so. And we're talking about, Not cheating on a spouse, though that occurs. I don't know if I want, that might be a different paper to to write. But we're talking about cheating in academic situations. Are we too dependent on computers? Let me check my phone, I'll tell you if I am or not, so. That's like, she goes, oh, oops, okay, thanks for getting back to me. Since I responded to her, they just forget. I get forgotten because I'm the ITV person. It's okay, I don't mind. Forget about me. Are parents clueless about child predators on the internet? If you don't like it, you don't have to write about it. That's the good news. See, I got a very negative reaction from Claire with that one. Well, I mean, I'm going to talk about my daughter and how very conscious she is. The internet, remember, the internet is not just on a computer, it's also on our phone. And I've got a 9-year-old grandson who's making TikToks and cussing in him, and my daughter is not happy. But that's not a child predator, but that's a situation where your child's putting themselves out there. So, so there may be a better one that are we allowing too much access to the internet to our children. That might be a better topic. Because you can talk about, because the big thing part about Facebook is how they say that Instagram is harming, do you girls have bad self-images because of watching stuff on Instagram or TikTok? Do you watch TikTok videos? Are they funny? Sometimes? Some of them? See, I'm like, I don't need another app. I got enough apps that I have too much trouble paying attention to now, so, Do you look for self-validation in something like that? I mean, do you look at it and go, oh, I can be her, or I look like her? No? Okay, all right, good. All right, should animals be used for research? This is an old topic. One of the databases you're going to see when she comes in on Wednesday is called Opposing Viewpoints. It presents both sides of an argument. They've been publishing books and art stuff for years, and they compile all the information together. It's an excellent source when you're going to write this essay, Opposing Viewpoints. It is a database. It's good. Should cigarette smoking be banned? No, we need to allow it. No, we don't. Yeah. Hey, I used to smoke. Now I have to jog slowly to work on that weight issue. I ran yesterday, like I said, and it was, the wind, it was wicked googly. It was cool, and I was not quite, and I ran about half a minute slower on my mouth because the wind was blowing so hard. We're lucky it wasn't about 3 minutes longer. Okay. Should cigarette smoking be banned? Well, it actually, that's one of those topics that it might not be worth writing on now. Because who's going to argue that, yes, people should be exposed to cigarette smoke? Lung cancer is good for you. Are cell phones dangerous? Whack, whack. I can hit you with my cell phone. Are they dangerous? They're addictive. We know that. Okay. Are law enforcement cameras an invasion of privacy? They were going to put those in Lubbock at streetlights, but they changed. It didn't pass. Are test scores a good indication of a school's competency? You'll notice the interesting numbering system again. Forget. The test scores, that's like schools get reports after the STAR test is done, and it's all been messed up the last couple of years because of COVID. And we know that kids don't get good enough instruction sitting at home, not paying attention on Zoom or Google Class or whatever they're meeting on, right? So to penalize the school because, but before that, if you have kids who don't care about learning, it's really hard to have good test scores. So, the problem is that, and speaking as an educator, is that we don't hold students accountable, we don't hold their parents accountable for the education either. Because it's not the school working, the teacher working on their own. You gotta have parents and you've gotta have students who want to learn. Do we have a throwaway society? Do we throw away a bunch of junk all the time? That's an interesting combination of cinnamon, candy, and sweet tea. We do have a throwaway society. Is child behavior better or worse than it was years ago? I'm just, it depends. I don't know. We got too many parents who want to be friends instead of parents. I'll just throw that out there. Should companies market to children? The closer we get to Christmas, We're gonna get more and more of those ads, for all those toys that you can't get because they're sitting on boats in the harbors outside of our big ports. Should the government have a say in our diets? All you kids sitting in Lorenzo, your food, what you get served at school, is determined by the government, if your school wants funding. You know? Oh, I like this one. Does access to condoms prevent teen pregnancy? I'm gonna say no, use prevents pregnancy, not access, okay? If you don't use it, it's not gonna prevent a pregnancy, so. Does access to condoms lead to irresponsible, dangerous, or bad behavior? You know, it's an interesting question. You know, and as a teacher who has had a number of students over the course of her education, of my time in education, get pregnant and have children. It happens. And it's happened forever. They just used to send those kids off somewhere else so they weren't sitting in school with all the good kids, the ones who didn't get pregnant. Let's phrase it that way, right? I don't think access to condoms does that. I think education by parents is the first thing. See? We've got to hold parents more accountable for what's going on with the kids. How about, are actors and professional athletes paid too much? I'm sorry, I like Pat Mahomes, but dadgummit, is he really worth that much money? Really? You know what I'm saying? Or LeBron James? Which is crazy. Are CEOs paid too much? You know what a CEO is? Chief Executive Officer of a company. If you go and look at the salaries of some of the major corporations in the U.S., are they worth that much? Is that why my insulin I have to buy for my husband? I used to get 2 bottles for $70. I got 1 bottle for $110 last Thursday. Yeah. And I'm sure some CEOs flying somewhere warm and gorgeous right now while I'm sitting in the classroom, right?
Don't CEOs have to go to school, right?
Well, yeah, most CEOs have gotten some education, but, you know, it just depends on who you are and whether you inherit a position or actually earn your way. And yeah, maybe some of them are worth it. I don't know, but are they paid too much? Do violent video games cause behavior problems? I don't know. How many of us got tired of seeing little kids flossing? And isn't Fortnite a violent game? Now, it's not like Grand Theft Auto, right, where you're running over the prostitutes and, right? Isn't that what's going on in that one? Should creationism be taught in public schools? I'm thinking that's probably a topic you should avoid. Creationism. That is God's creating of the earth. Yeah.
What is creationism?
It is the Christian version of God created the earth in 7 days. In reality, it was probably more like 14.
Your conference is scheduled to end in 2 minutes.
Okay. He runs on a different schedule. Are beauty pageants exploitive? That's an interesting one. Why don't we have beauty pageants for men? Let them parade around in a little swimsuit. Huh?
Because it's for girls.
Because it's for girls? Oh, okay, let's have a handsome pageant. Okay. Should English be the official language in the United States? You're not allowed to speak any other language? Nah, I don't know. See, this isn't all this. Should the racing industry be forced to use biofuels? I've got at least 2 guys who are in love with cars and trucks. They might write about that one. Okay? I think somebody's comparing and contrasting that, actually. When should parents let teens make their own decisions? Here's a good one. We're almost out of time. So there's a lot more lists on here. Should the military be allowed to recruit at high schools? They already are. Should the alcohol drinking age be increased or decreased? There's somebody who'll want to write about that one. Does age matter